Me and my two friends seen a ghost train. So this was about 6 years ago, around January, I believe. I was with two lifelong friends. We decided to go do something before we all shipped off to the military. I was going to be the first to ship out a few months after this. We started off hanging out at one friend's grandma's house. We eventually got bored and drove down to this river kind of back in the mountains in WV. So the way this is set up, we have the road up the hill, then a small patch of woods to walk through, probably 20 meters of woods. Then it opened up to a railroad track. Below the railroad track, down a steep gravel hill, was the riverbank. So it was dark. We parked the car on the road and walked down to the river, crossing the railroad. We didn't really have a plan. We just built a small fire on the riverbank and sat around repeating inside jokes and laughing about dumb stuff we did when we were younger. We couldn't have been there longer than 15 minutes when we heard a man yelling. Though we couldn't make out any words, the yelling sounded like he was yelling in a defensive manner. So we looked around and couldn't see anything. We heard it again and decided to stomp out the fire and sit there quietly and listen. After a few minutes go by, we decided to leave. So we made our way up the steep. So steep we basically had to crawl up it, gravel hill to the railroad tracks. We got to the top where we were about to cross the tracks, but we heard the sound of an engine getting closer. We decided to get on our bellies and wait the train out. We didn't want to get caught on railroad property because it's a no trespass area. Anyways, we seen lights coming and even seen smoke coming from the engine. Weird since they don't use steam engines anymore, but we thought nothing of it and kept waiting. We waited for maybe 30 seconds to a minute when we heard the same noise from earlier. We looked around again and seen nothing. When we turned back, the train was no longer headed toward us. It was just gone. We seen that it was clear and just crossed the tracks, went back up the hill through the woods, and just slept in the car. We ended up leaving in the morning and never really thought much of it. Then the next evening, we finally brought up how weird it was that a whole entire train just disappeared, and we questioned why we just didn't leave. Fast forward to 3 years later. I was in the military at this point and was back home in West Virginia for leave. I went to a bookstore with my dad and brother, and I went to the horror section. I seen a subsection with local books. I picked up one that was called something along the lines of West Virginia Legends. I don't remember the exact title. I flipped past a few pages and landed on one section called Ghost Trains in West Virginia. I immediately closed the book and sat it down. Weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life, and we still talk about it to this day. And I really don't know why we thought nothing of it until the next day, because that was extremely weird. Also, note that the way this particular track was set up, the way it ran was parallel to the river and the road going around the mountain. There was no fork in the tracks, and it could not have turned anywhere due to being right in between a road/mountain and a river. Let me know what you guys think. I'm not really sure how a train could be a ghost. I sent this in to a paranormal podcast, and they said we could have been in a time slip. I don't really know. I'm not super into paranormal stuff, but would love to hear some opinions about what you guys think it could have been.